for staying tuned. This is The Point, and you're watching Smart 24 TV. We do drive your business. You can catch the latest on business on channel 302 on GOTV and channel 372 DSTV as well. And of course, Smart 24 TV pledges support for business and meaning business 24 hours, 7 days a week. Today we are talking about role of ICT in national economy in reference to the national budget allocation for digital transformation and a couple of other sectors, but of course looking at the digital economy in a big picture. I'm with Mr. Robert Bob Okello and Mr. Ntege Badru, of course, to add a lot more insights to our discussion. Now, Mr. Okello, you are a startup founder, you interact with young people, you have these very brilliant minds come together at your place at Marifasasa. That's
Yeah.
okay. We're about to get to know what that means and where it came from. But talking about internet access, Mr. Badru just mentioned there that maybe subsidizing costs of the internet or having Wi-Fi all over the place isn't the solution. But getting to see that more people have smartphones, we have a wider base for different people to be able to access the internet could be a solution. What would be your opinion in this case? Because we're looking at 70% of the population being offline in the 21st century. Literally, that means something could happen and these people will never know in real time, just like you see other third world economies. But now when you look at the pace at which we are moving, Uganda is moving towards digitalization. We have digitalized healthcare, we have digitalized education systems. It means some few people have already moved very many steps ahead. So what do you think, in your view, should the government do to increase internet access? Should we look at subsidizing internet costs? Should we look at more accessibility? Or like Mr. Ntege shared, we should actually widen the base?
Very good question. And I think before we went for the break, Mr. Ntege had some very interesting views. And I actually share a lot in some of those views. First of all, I do believe that increasing access to the internet is not just as simple as making internet free, right? Or providing free Wi-Fi hotspots all over the place. That is a very important step indeed, and it has very significant contributions when it comes to ensuring that the barriers to accessibility, like money and all those things, are dealt with. But beyond that, I think a lot more actually needs to be done. And I would look at it from a point of value, right? If you think about just giving people access to the internet, I think, first of all, people need to understand the value of being online, okay? And that ultimately will lead to sort of how we can actually bring down the numbers. Because at the end of the day, I think it's a game of numbers, okay? The more people, let me rephrase it. It's not just about the more people who are online, but I think what Mr. Badru Ntege was alluding to is about the number of people who are online and creating value. Okay, because at the end of the day, the market forces are going to come into play. So if you give people access to the internet and actually people are being productive online, I think it begins to create some sort of ecosystem where there's value being created and there's value generation happening. Now, when a lot more people are creating and actually getting value by virtue of being online, we'll see that issues of cost will begin to diminish, right? And that creates a case for those who are actually offline to also have an incentive to actually go online. I also want to perhaps believe that not everyone that is offline because they simply cannot afford, right? Indeed, that is a real issue for many people. But I think there's also an issue of not really seeing or perhaps fully appreciating the value of being online. Okay, because if that is made clear in terms of understanding the value that one can unlock by being online, then I'm sure people will be more willing, perhaps, to be able to make a small investment to go that, because at the end of the day, the case for the return on investment is very clear, right? So that's a very key aspect of it. So ultimately, I think, this is an issue of a wider issue of digital inclusion. But I would actually want to talk more about digital economic inclusion, okay? And I'll give you a simple story to kind of illustrate this. Last week, I was in Kigali for the, Inclusive FinTech Forum, okay? And one of the sessions, by a very renowned African entrepreneur, talked about why we need to move beyond financial inclusion and talk about economic inclusion. Okay, because financial inclusion simply means giving more people access to banking services, wallets and all that. Okay,
financial literacy.
Exactly, financial literacy and all this. But one question you ask is, what's the point of having a bank account if you don't have money to put on the bank account, right? What's the point of having an empty digital wallet, okay? And this is what ushers us to a bigger question of economic inclusion. First, we need to ensure that people are economically included, okay? They're making money, they're involved in the economy, okay? Part of this budget talks about full monetization, okay, of the economy through a lot of things, including digital transformation and market access. I think that's very essential because the same principles apply when it comes to digital economic inclusion. It's not just a matter of giving people access to the internet, okay? It's about showing them, how being online can actually help them to be involved economically, how they can actually, make a living online, how they can create and, receive value online, okay? Once there's, a wider appreciation of the economic value that the digital economy unlocks, and there's a deep understanding of how that can be done, then digital access becomes almost a no-brainer, right? Because if I know that going online is going to help me make money, a simple case like that, I now have a much stronger incentive to actually go online, okay? What Mr. Ntego was alluding to is, there's no point of having a mobile phone if there's no one I can call, right? There was no point of having a fax machine if there's no one on the receiving end. So I think the same principles applies when it comes to digital economic inclusion, ensuring that first of all we help our people understand the economic value that these digital platforms offer, and actually empower our people. Again, the issue of empowerment is about skilling and ensuring that they're equipped with the right mindset when it comes to approaching digital economy. They have the right set of skill sets, right? And then they have also the tool sets. Okay, so those three components are very key. The mindset, the skill sets, and the tool sets. Once these three areas are addressed, then we can begin to really go full on when it comes to digital inclusion, and most importantly, digital economic inclusion. So, and helping people appreciate the value that lies on these digital platforms, empowering them with the right tools and the skill sets to actually go on those platforms to unlock that value, and then opening up the platforms. Now it makes very simple, actually very vivid economic sense to then open up that platform. If I'm creating free internet and people are going there to make money and pay taxes and all that stuff, it becomes almost a no-brainer to make that kind of investment. So it's not just about giving free access to the internet, but really unlocking the true economic value and potential of these digital platforms.
Yeah, well, interesting insights there, Mr. Okelo. Mr. Ntege, if you would want to add to this discussion, he talks about something to do with not just access the internet and using digital platforms, but getting economic value out of them. Now, this is something that many young people will agree with. We are seeing many young people on TikTok, for example, on different other platforms. But what is basically there is entertainment, and a few people have been able to tap into the sector to do business, right? Is this also something that government should look at critically to see that the digital transformation does not just come with the inclusion, but also the economic transformation, seeing that young people can tap into digital spaces to do businesses or to make money? What should government do in this line, and are we moving in the right direction so far?
I think we tend to mistake something interesting about the new economy. The richest people in the world, if you look at groups, are in the entertainment space, right? And they've become that rich because their ability now to reach millions and millions of people at the same time. So when a young person, when the most popular group on YouTube is the Massacre Kids, and they earn money because they've reached a particular threshold on YouTube to earn money. So the subjectivity of saying that digital should just be for business. Entertainment is business. People discovering their skill sets on TikTok is business. The other thing that that comes out of there that we also now have to start appreciating is this self-discovery thing about young people, that I can actually, hey, hold a minute, I can go sit in front of my phone and really be myself and produce content, and that content does not have to be moderated by a particular single person who has a particular view, but guess what? That content will either grow by a number of people who appreciate it independently or not. So now you're seeing people who naturally are actually becoming popular and becoming influencers.
Yes.
But then when we go back into our prescribed social models that we build in, we would like those people to just be hidden in the corner. But guess what? That particular person has millions of followers, right? And we have a number of those where socially someone will say, now that one, but hey, guess that one you're talking about online is amazingly popular. So the concept on digital economic value has changed, and we need to appreciate that it has changed. We recently saw our ghetto kids get from here, go on to the UK, onto a television program in the UK and become global hits. But where do you think they learned those dance moves? Right? They learned those dance moves online, on content they could find in an unfiltered process, where we moved away from the old structure where we had filtered channels of entertainment when people like us were growing up, to now I can go online and choose which part of the entertainment I want to be. So we need to redefine what economic value on digitization is, because sometimes I think we put that in our own prescribed cultural, moral setting, and we tend to think business is only about selling online or not. Entertainment is the biggest business, and carrying that on, we've seen what happens. Let's actually see it happen on our ecosystem. I see amazing content by natural born artists who have not gone to school, but they come up and they entertain. They actually make entertaining scripts online. Now, what we need to do in Uganda now is to enable these people to be paid, right? Because now our job really to do is enabling our financial ecosystem to enable a young, innovative person out of Lira who can actually go online and create content and say, please contribute, and somebody presses a button and sends $1, and that young person gets that $1, right? That's where we should be actually doing, because now that single $1 to that young person is more than they might get. Now, the more dollars they get, other people are going to do that. And many countries have actually done that and created a lot of earning for their young people. So for me, I think our focus now as we go to digitization, and especially when we move away from what are we doing at digitization at the policy and government level, what are we doing at the consumption level? How are we enabling these creators to benefit from their creation, right? And once we do that, you'll be amazed. You'll actually be amazed how that then actually drives the economy we want to drive, right? Because now those people now at that point value digitization beyond, so they then start driving the economy. So yes, for me, everything on there, yes, there is a little bit of content which is on the other edge, but it is not the majority, right? The majority is enable our young people to create, enable them to put the content on there, and then enable them to earn from it. Really, the job we have as advocacy and policy and influencers in this is to create an environment where that young 18, 19-year-old who has now managed to create content online and the content has 1 million viewers, imagine if they earned 50 cents per view.
Of the views.
Right? That does not only makes them better, but actually makes the community better. So for me, everything digital is value. And let's create that value and build it on there. I just wanted to say, because I was looking at some of the statistics, and it's YouTube is one of our highest points we go to. But there's something I call YouTube School. There's literally anything you want to know, to learn is on YouTube. And I've done this experiment with my Ascaris. He's a welder. Of YouTube School.
University of YouTube.
So and I keep on training because I like testing those points. But you can actually take someone who never went to school, put them in front of YouTube, and they will learn. And before they're doing products. So there is that aspect of the digitization that we've not looked at. But as a nation, we can actually add more value to that than restricting.
Actually, I agree with you on that fact. When you go to university right now, professors are more complicated than YouTube.
Yes.
You find that students, the only way they have to understand some of these concepts, be it in any sector, architecture, engineering, health, they will go to YouTube and they'll get a better explanation than their professor. Not to say that the professor didn't put it right, but because they sound so sometimes complicated. Yet you can find it easier on YouTube.
After the long lecture, falling asleep is gone. Right? 20 minutes on YouTube.
Yes. And you say, oh my goodness.
You connect the dots immediately.
Yes. Wow, interesting. Mr. Okello, we have a lot of potential in our ICT sector. Mr. Ntege has just mentioned there what we need to do. Now, how can government leverage on ICT in order to improve the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure? Yes, we want to have more people access the internet. We want to have better usage of the internet, creating value like you mentioned. But the infrastructure, we need a lot more infrastructure in place so far. I've seen government try to put up, which is really commendable, hubs, ICT innovation hubs in universities. I've seen one in Kabale, Muni, Soroti, Makerere University. These hubs bring together innovators, but still this is to a smaller extent. How can we still leverage ICT and create infrastructure that will help support especially young people with tech startups?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question. The question around infrastructure. I actually want to look at infrastructure, especially from I just want to step back a bit, And when we talk about digital access and internet access, we often, just looking at things like, the national backbone fiber, which is very essential, right? But an often forgotten area, or perhaps infrastructure investment that is very critical to internet access is access to electricity.
Oh, wow.
Access to energy, right? I mean, we all have very fancy gadgets here, right? Without, a place where you can charge these things, they're redundant. If you cannot use that smartphone, that tablet, that computer, you are immediately digitally excluded, okay? It doesn't matter if you can afford the internet. If you do not have a place where you can charge that phone to be able to use the internet, you're digitally excluded. So for me, I think one of the key infrastructure investments that needs to be done, of course, is in ensuring that more and more Ugandans have access to electricity. Okay. Of course, there's a strong emphasis on this budget in terms of increasing the kilometers of electrical wiring. We've seen in the past a lot of efforts being put in rural electrification, but I think a lot more needs to be done, because for me that is extremely essential when it comes to internet access. So ensuring that more Ugandans have access to electricity, especially in the remote parts of the country. Earlier at the beginning, I talked about the urban youth and the rural youth, right? Those rural young people who are very, very hungry for this knowledge, without electricity, it doesn't matter whether there is a national backbone fiber passing through their village. If there is no electricity, they won't be able to actually tap into the possibilities of the digital economy. So for me, that's a very key infrastructure investment that needs to be done. beyond that, of course, then, you know, all these things, you know, the ICT hubs we're talking about, you know, we can then, you know, go on and actually, you know, fully expand those very critical infrastructure like the national backbone fiber, you know. But for me, access to electricity is often not talked about in these conversations on digital inclusion and internet access, but I think it's extremely essential.
Yeah, just as we are talking now, someone has been commenting on the show, and they were asking, how can I be able to be part of the ICT? I love ICT, but I have no one, nowhere to start. I think this is Benjamin. It's on one of our YouTube platforms. I think I'm going to share probably at the end of the show how people can actually reach you and start up, of course, their journey of ICT. We're going to take another quick break, Mr. Ntege. But when we return, there are challenges with ICT. We cannot overlook, for example, how ICT is a potential disaster, especially to the young people, if not consumed the right way. For example, we've just celebrated this year's National Day of the African Child, promoting under the theme promoting and protecting children's rights in the digital era. You've seen young people who have actually been abused using digital platforms, and you've also seen why we put in place, for example, the Computer Misuse Act. And many people, of course, criticize this act, saying it's putting a hold on people's, you know, freedom to ICT, people's freedom. But then the legislators were saying, look at what some people have used ICT to do. For example, planned crime, and then especially against children. You know, people have used digital spaces to harass children, and so. Yes, we need to grow this sector. We need it for our economy and for our well-being, but of course it's a potential hazard. How can we protect the young people especially from these potential hazards of the ICT sector? Also, cybercrime. When you look at now, you no longer need your money actually to be stolen physically. Money can be scammed off your accounts, and someone can just simply hack into your account and they take all your money. Without, or with you or without you knowing. We've seen big institutions lose a lot of money, billions of money off of ICT. So how can we protect the economy, protect young people from these ICT threats? And finally, also, we want to discuss the impact of the digital divide. Yes, we've addressed the problem, some of them including digital access, internet access, but still you see there are some marginalized groups like the PWDs, the women. Yes, when you still look at the statistics, they don't balance out. So how can we address the digital divide and, of course, the challenges that come with ICT? My name is Anthony. I'm with Mr. Ntege Badru from the Private Sector Foundation Uganda, and, of course, Mr. Robert Bob Okello, who is a startup founder that is at Marifasasa. And we are discussing the role of IT. We return shortly after this breather.